in the womb, we need water, right? Ocean, like ocean water, ocean life. For the ascension, we need food with the fire element, ascension. So in the womb, primarily we depend protein, this mother's blood, to retain the water. Why water? Because by water, the spirit can be contained for a while, to have an experience. So we can have feelings and so on. But for the ascension, we need the food with the fire, that's the carbohydrates. So that's why in the transition, we still need a mother's blood, but the portion becomes sweet, called mother's milk, to prepare us for the ascension. And then, when we become able to fully create our own blood, because we have our teeth, and we develop more our digestive system, and we know by the time that we begin to connect inner earth and inner heaven. You know how? By the first word of the baby. It's mama, mama. Why mama? Because the sound like M come from here. And I from here. Soon as you connect, the baby says mama, no matter what language, mama. Okay? But also constantly we do that when there's something nice here, they're excited, right? Right? Why? Because there's a vibration that you make, right? Because it excites here. So this has to be maintained fully. Now what happens when you bypass inner earth, right? Like alcohol, one thing, like sugar, refined foods, juices, many things. They don't have the polarity, so the blood cannot be fully generated here from the inner earth. So what are the symptoms? That means you don't have the polarity to maintain heaven and earth connection. What are the first symptoms? Lower back problems, lack of attention span, right? Fatigue. That's already diabetes. That's diabetes, because there's no polarity, right? So what you don't use, you lose. So the pancreatic area, including kidney area, start to become less functional. And so the blood then becomes increasingly acid because you don't have the yang power right from here. So what are the symptoms next? Right? No circulation to your feet. Infection, amputation. And as the blood goes to the head, blindness. Right? And then fatigue more. And that's diabetes. But now they have diabetes number 1, number 2, number 3. I don't care how many numbers they give. This is diabetes. Don't give it numbers. Right? Lower back problems are number 1. Right? How far you want to go? 10, 12, 20? Right? See, the medical system don't have any justification, but they have a scapegoat. They say, oh, this is this name or that name, right? They give it names, including with nutrition, anything. They just labels. Macrobiotics is to really identify use or intelligence or power of discernment by yin and yang, see it. But we have to do it from the inductive, not deductive. And this is, at the present time, still need to be improved in macrobiotics teaching studies. This thing, inductive, error, inductive. Now, to cure this, of course, you need a transition, the transition food, and macrobiotics know, like asuki and pumpkins and kombu, to bring it down, so you can digest from here and gradually cure. Now I have one extreme case in Hopi land. He was a medicine man, Hopi medicine man, had diabetes. He had to patch his eyes here, on one side, because he saw double. He couldn't see it straight, double. Like this. Half of his foot was already amputated, He couldn't walk for 50 meters without resting. It was completely extreme. Yeah? So he came, and somebody told him, and gave him advice. Right? Stay away from sugar. And he didn't even know about cooking. I mean, it's like, Ori, please, don't, yeah? And eat as much possible whole grains or whole corn for the whole day. In 4 days, he could take off his patch. He could say straight. Of course, not cured yet. 1 month later, he could walk, right, around the block. Right? 2 months later, he was dancing with the Kachina dances, ceremonies, and so on. Right? Only one thing was failing: supported family, support psychological aspect. So he felt better. I didn't want to be exclusive, started eating again, sugar, cakes, and came back. Okay. I helped him again, but he couldn't give up the psychological aspect. So they amputated both his legs and died. See, that is the 4th level. See? So selection of food, preparation of food, eating of food, becoming food. That's the social aspect what you're talking about. Right? That is behavior. And that's why macrobiotics need to emphasize also all the 4 levels, not only the symptom, like curing cancer and so on. Anyway, that is diabetes.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you know, some of the differences, like I wouldn't say that diabetes is the origin of diseases. I would say digestive issues are the origin of issues. And but I think generally we on the larger picture we agree.
The larger scheme.
But some of the specifics we may have differences.
I know you know.
Right. Good.
And you've just spoken about digestion.
Mm-hmm.
Raw food now is becoming very popular, but macrobiotics emphasizes a lot about cooking. What do you have to say?
Raw food diet.
Raw food diet. Raw foods.
You want to talk about it?
Yeah, you go first. Yeah.
Raw food diet. What I've been saying, and sometimes I get a little bit angry with saying, I say, well, raw can spell war. Yeah, can spell war.
War. If you reverse the letter. If you don't know, it can become war inside war. I mean, really war. Now, what is the justification of raw food? They say, well, when you cook your food, you destroy the vitamins and the enzymes and so on, and that's it. They call it live food. But like any other diet, it's based on analytical scientific observation, microscope. Okay? Now the people who say that the fire or cooking destroy the food, first of all, they don't know cooking, period. Yeah? They think only fire. But when you cook, right, you need to know how to control inside the food by space and time. Polarization, time, by pressure, right, like we did, right? By salt and water, by the adding of the ingredients in a certain sequence, right? And by temperature, like fire, right? Now that is cooking. Now, first of all, people who say cooking destroyed, they don't know cooking. So they're not qualified to talk about that. Number one, okay? But in the bigger scheme, like I mentioned, to create a human complex cell, okay, you need the 5 elements. Okay? Air, earth, water, fire, and the grain. And we say, well, we use no fire. Right? Well, we use water. Okay, we use air, although the chemtrails, right? It's all polluted. And we use probably salt,
I don't know if they use salt or how much and how, but the salt, first of all, if you want to use it in the proper way, it had to be cooked into the food, not just add like this. It had to be cooked into the food. That's one thing. So that is kind of questionable. No fire. How can you accept? Number one. No grains. And they say, well, we eat grains, but we sprout it. No. When you sprout a seed, it's not a seed anymore. It's a new plant. So no grains. No grains. Right? And they say, well, we don't use fire. They use more fire. Right? But what kind of fire? Electricity. Right? The food that they import, right? Fruits, food that are out of season, they need refrigeration, transport to bring it in. That's fire. Right? That's fire. Plus, when you eat so much of the raw foods, including a lot of potassium from fruits, what happens? Your body starts to cool off. So in winter time, they use more fire to heat up. Right? They get cold. So they use fire, but in a different way. Right? Then, by eating raw food, you need twice the amount of blood, time, energy for digestion. Right? So especially women, after 3 months, 6 months, what happens? Normally what you see, they stop menstruating. They cannot conceive. Right? And men become impotent, I've seen. Less sexual power. So they become unhappy, right? Frustrated, right? Sexual frustration, and so on. In other words, how you want to continue as a human race? That way. Yes, of course, raw food at times can be used as therapy, sometimes, for certain cases, therapy, but not a normal food for the human race. But I say, we are happy. Well, of course, cows are happy too, right? But what kind of happiness is that? What kind of happiness, right? So there's a few things fundamentally that I can mention. There is more to say about that. So there's no justification, right, to have this food for the human race. No justification, except they can justify it by analytical information, which are not complete. Not complete. Right? I spoke with one of the top men of the raw food diet in London. That was a few years ago. His name is Stephen, I think, in Glastonbury. And we had a good conversation, and I thought, oh, that's great. Then I asked him a question, but then, the raw food diet, is fair to say that it's experimental. I say, yes, experimental. No, say it. Say it. Experiment. Don't say this is the best for the human race. That is wrong. Yeah? That is wrong. So when you do this, then raw becomes war. For sure. Reaction. Yeah? Because you cannot make a cycle, you get a reaction. And you become exclusive and fanatic. Which I have seen. Anyway, I'm sorry when, when I make some people angry.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something about
Sure.
it?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, macrobiotics isn't a diet. So to compare raw food to macrobiotics is not the same thing. Yeah. Macrobiotics includes raw food. It includes animal food. It includes everything. And some people can live off of raw food for a while. Some people can live off of animal food for a while. And to me, when I see it as a larger phenomena in society, I see it as people are experimenting, as Roy said. People are experimenting and trying something else and mainly because as a reaction to many years of heavy animal food eating, as well as if they were macrobiotic, they ate macrobiotically in a very more, what we call more yang way. Like they overcooked their food, or they ate too much salt, or they ate too much yang type of condensed type of eating. And so then when they eat raw food, they feel much better, and they feel like, oh, much lighter, because that was missing in their diet before. So, you know, to me, it's just this big swing that is happening, that people ate too much either animal food, and they're still eating too much animal food, and they need to go to raw food to balance all of that out. Or they, when they were doing macrobiotic or some other type of diet, even like Atkins diet or something, then they go for raw food, and they feel so much better. But again, that will only last a certain period of time. Then they have to find again the balance again. So it's always this up and down. Society is always moving. But what is good about it is that people are becoming aware, much more aware of what they're eating. So they feel better when they eat this. And then some people who eat raw food, then they realize, oh, they taste a piece of steak that's been grilled. They say, oh, wow, this tastes good. I missed that, you know, and then they feel better as well. So then the paleo diet is now becoming in fashion, you know, people eating meat. So it's like these big swings in social, but as a whole, people are becoming more conscious of what they're eating, which is a good thing. And the other thing I want to say is, like he mentioned, that, you know, raw food is made possible because of energy, because of electricity, high-speed blenders and things like that. That wasn't around in ancient times. Ancient times, people used to eat a lot of raw food because they didn't have all these utensils. However, when they began cooking food and applying fire, as researchers have studied, and there's a good book called Catching Fire that studied the history of fire in cooking, that once fire was introduced in cooking, that it released more nutrients. It made food more nutrient dense. We could get more nutrition out of the food, and we could get more out of the food if we cooked a little bit, broke it down just a little bit even. And that then gave us more, it evolved us further actually, and it helped us develop civilizations. So cooking food with fire was the beginning of civilization. That once we changed our diet that way, then we started to build immense civilizations that we have today. That's an argument of this book called Catching Fire. And so, to me, you know, raw food is, you know, people need to eat that way, especially if they've been eating too much animal food and too much heavy, salty foods for a long period of time. Then that can definitely help them, and you can see people get much better after eating raw foods. You know. So that's great, and they need that. However, to be able to do and build, if they want to really do something strong, then sometimes fire cooking is valuable too. And the other thing that I want to mention is that, you know, in the scale of we think of cooking as just applying fire, but cooking is a big scale. It includes fire, like from the contracted form, like baking and using just heat, to all the way up to boiling, steaming, and, you know, all that, and then raw, and then marinating, soaking, and then over here is fermenting. So the most
lighter ways, no?
Yeah, more light or more yin. You know, if you're going yang to yin, the more yin type of cooking is fermenting. So like you have wine and you have alcohol and all of these other things that are, you know, much more beyond raw food. You know, so what is good about raw foods is that they start to include more fermented products, like more pickles and more all of those things which they consider part of the raw diet, which it's also important. So however, we do need at least you know, a portion, if we're going to maintain our health a longer time, some part cooking and some part.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, Roy. Since change is the only absolute constant within creation, how can change be used in macrobiotics?
Well, change requires polarity. So once you have polarity, you can change. The significance of the human is we can create polarity. See? And so we can use the law consciously, that means change is the only constant and law is constant. So the only law is change. So we can use that law by creating polarities. Like I mentioned, by cutting, the polarization this way, that way, by the sequence of adding ingredients. For example, when we have here a cooking pot like this, sauté, right? So you have onions and you have carrots. So, in most cases, okay, onions, carrot, cut, put together, sauté. But if you want to really benefit from this ingredients, you can make a polarity, but polarity get the interaction. There are two ways to put these ingredients in the pot. If you put the carrot, the onion first, that is more going up, and this is more going down. You see, so you create here a polarity, a unifying polarity. One goes up and goes down. So you saute this first, then the carrot, and now you get onion and carrot plus. That plus is by polarity. You see, so the humans are able to create energy, and that's why we don't need to spend so much time and energy for digesting the food. We have no time to create, to develop mentally, spiritually, and so on. Animals, they don't have that. All day they eat and defecate, have sex, sleep, get up, eat again. But humans, see, they can create energy. They can recreate themselves. Right? We are creators. So the more we can change, the more we become part of creation. You see, now, macrobiotics is to become a co-creator. Right? But this is the case today. It's anti-change. Anti-change. Actually, this is diabetes on the global scale. Right? So here we have the food that normally becomes us and consciousness going back, but here the food is intercepted, right, and manipulated, including Monsanto and so on, taking all the memory, also debilitating the digestive system here with Coca-Cola, toothpaste, fluoride, and so on. So now we cannot have the memory to come back. We get stuck. This is a tumor. This is diabetes, right, in a big way. We cannot come down and ascend. This is diabetes. This is trap. And it started with the Inquisition. Again, we have to remember. We have to realize it. So the solution for humanity is, if we really want the cure, to change the control, see, from the outer into the inner. And so make the kitchen again the center of government. That's what macrobiotics is for. That's what Yodosawa emphasized, world government. Make the kitchen again the center of government. Right? That we call world government. Every home, right, is a government of, by, and for the people. That's democracy. Not today. Today we have democracy. That's completely opposite. Right? Coming back to the question. What was the question?
I think you answered me with the carrots and the onion. No, how can change be used with macrobiotics? How can we use macrobiotics for changing food, for being more better for us?
Changing anything. Change yourself, change society, change the world, change the way of thinking, change of consciousness, change. Change is no limit. And we can do it the more and more we get into now, with its touch with the infinite, now it cannot stop. See, the more we get into the center, right, the more we can change. But we have to come to that center, and it begins here. See, this is the center. From here, the blood circulation begins. See? But the control is when we put in our mouth the blood, and from here we begin to ascend. Now, before, this control point, right, was in the head. We begin with the head in the mother's womb. Right? The first 8 days where you see how heaven and earth come together, and then you get a pulsation. So the heart begins here in the head. It's not the tongue. But the mother, right, gives us the blood to connect us with the earth, and more the earth, right, gets internalized, and now heaven and earth start to pulsate this way. Instead before it was like this. And so the heart also goes down, and now the heart is pulsated by the inner heaven and inner earth. But after we are born, right, they had to go over to the head because it's chewing, right? So outside the tongue, right, chewing, and then that food goes to the inner earth. From here goes back to the heart. But before it was straight to the heart, right? Like a primitive life eat, like an amoeba, they eat straight to the heart, to the mouth, to the head. But the humans, because they have a long memory, evolution, so we extend the head now, we call this body, right? This body is condensed evolution. But we have to know how to maintain this evolution, right, on a daily basis. They call this breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? Ocean life, land formation, that's where the diaphragm there, land life, the lungs, and so on. So macrobiotics is much more than just food. Macrobiotics is bringing forth the past into the now, into the future. So the more we are in the now, present, right, the more we can make balance, not in ourselves only, but contribute to the balance of the universe.